Imagine if a single step could change your entire life and the fate of whole nations. That was Abraham's challenge, a journey of faith against the impossible. But before we embark on this epic adventure, I invite you to join our community. Subscribe now and ring the bell to explore together the stories that have shaped humanity. In a scenario marked by decisions that drew fate, Abraham, moved by unwavering faith, leaves his father's home behind, heeding the divine whisper calling him to an unknown land. Lot, his nephew, journeys along, but soon their paths diverge, each following a distinct path that mirrors their inner choices. Abraham, with his eyes turned to the ethereal and the heavenly promises, and Lot, seduced by the earthly vision of prosperity and beauty of the Jordan plain, which sparkled in his eyes like a mirror of paradise. Lot's choice, though seemingly rational to worldly eyes, carried within it the seed of his own downfall, for he chose to set his dwelling near Sodom, a land whose inhabitants, though rich in possessions, were impoverished in spirit. This decision reveals a perennial truth about human nature. The incessant quest for material satisfaction often blinds us to the values that truly sustain life. In Hebron, under the lush canopies of the trees of Mamre, Abraham witnesses the divine manifest in an extraordinary way. The arrival of 3 travelers at the heat of noon turns into a moment of revelation and blessing. Abraham's generosity and hospitality, offering rest and nourishment, reflect the essence of a heart aligned with heavenly principles, a disposition that transcends the ordinary and touches the sublime. The promise of a child to Sarah, who was advanced in years and skeptical about nature's possibilities, brings forth laughter of disbelief. However, this episode unveils one of the greatest truths of human existence. In the face of divine power, human limitations vanish. The divine questioning of Sarah's laughter is not an inquiry about her faith, but an affirmation of the power that transforms the impossible into reality. This weave of events, culminating in the promise of a future filled with descendants and blessings, and the grim forecast about Sodom, is not just a tale about faith and doubt, choice and consequence. It is an invitation to reflect on the values that guide our lives, on the importance of aligning our actions with elevated principles, and on the belief in the extraordinary, even when it hides in the folds of the everyday. In this story, the journey of Abraham and Lot, intertwined by divinities and human decisions, offers a mirror through which we can glimpse our own reflections. It reveals to us that, in every choice, we carry the capacity to draw closer to the divine or to distance ourselves from it. And that, at the heart of our lives, pulses the desire for an existence that echoes not just here and now, but through the ages. Continuing this saga that shapes Abraham not just as a patriarch, but as an interlocutor between the divine and the human, we see a dialogue that transcends time, echoing questions of justice and mercy that still provoke us today. The divine promise to Abraham that he would be the foundation of a blessed and just nation was not just a personal covenant, but a life project that would extend through generations, shaping the character of his descendants through the principles of justice and righteousness. The unfolding of this narrative takes us to the heart of one of the most intense interactions between man and the divine recorded in the scriptures: Abraham's intercession for Sodom. Faced with the possibility of total destruction, Abraham, driven by a deep sense of justice, challenges the divine plans with questions that seek to affirm the fundamental justice he believes governs the universe. This dialogue between Abraham and God reveals a facet of God often overlooked: his openness to dialogue, his patience, and his willingness to consider human pleas. Abraham's negotiation, reducing the number of righteous needed to spare the city, demonstrates not only his audacity in speaking directly with the divine, but also his deep understanding of the mercy and justice he believes to be intrinsic to God's character. Abraham's insistence, his humility in presenting himself as dust and ashes, and his persistence in seeking divine mercy for the righteous of Sodom highlight an eternal truth about the nature of intercession. It is an act of love and justice, a recognition of the dignity and value of each life. God's response, adjusting to each of Abraham's requests, reinforces the message that, at the heart of divinity, there is an unshakable commitment to justice and mercy. The outcome of this interaction, with God agreeing to spare the city if even just 10 righteous were found, underscores a powerful lesson on the impact of individual justice and the capacity of a righteous person to generate divine mercy and preservation. This narrative, rich in dialogue and tension, is not merely a historical account of ancient events. It is an invitation to reflect on the principles that govern our lives and society. It calls us to ponder our own willingness to stand up for justice, to intercede for others, and our faith in the fundamental justice that, as history teaches us, lies at the heart of the relationship between the divine and the human. The story of Abraham and his intercession for Sodom resonates through the centuries, reminding us that in every era and society, the calls to justice, mercy, and love are eternal. It challenges us to ask ourselves, how can we, in our own way, walk the path of justice and righteousness? And how can we be, like Abraham, intercessors in a world that desperately needs both? In the rich and complex tapestry of events that unfolds, Abraham's character shines as a guiding light, illuminating the way with his actions and words. Abraham's intercession for Sodom is not a mere act of bargaining, but a profound expression of compassion and justice, marking one of the highest moments of humanity in dialogue with the divine. Abraham, aware of the weight of his words, approaches the Creator with a humility that touches the heart, conscious of his own mortality, but driven by a boldness fueled by justice. This plea for mercy, descending to the minimum number of 10 righteous to spare an entire city, unveils the essence of an active and engaged faith, concerned not only with one's own well-being, but with the fate of all, righteous and unrighteous alike. The contrast between Abraham's fervent intercession and Lot's subsequent negotiation for Zoar highlights different stances before the divine and the fate of the cities. The narrative reaches its climax with the arrival of the angels in Sodom, where Lot, though offering hospitality, finds himself in a context of profound moral depravity. The inhabitants' refusal to welcome the strangers, choosing instead to act in violent and perverse ways, illustrates the ethical and spiritual chasm that separates Sodom from the path of righteousness. Lot, in his desperate attempt to protect his guests, reveals both his allegiance to the laws of hospitality and the terrible reality of a city lost in its own vice. The blindness that afflicts the men of Sodom, rendering them unable to find the door, is a powerful symbol of their moral blindness, an inability to see their own depravity and need for redemption. The urgency with which the angels urge Lot to gather his family and leave the city echoes the imminence of divine judgment, a reminder of a justice that does not sleep. The incredulity of Lot's sons-in-law, who regard his warnings as mere words to the wind, underscores the difficulty of grasping the gravity of decisive moments when fate hangs in the balance. This episode, marked by the tension between divine justice and mercy, between moral blindness and spiritual enlightenment, between destruction and salvation, offers profound reflection on the values that sustain a society and the power of intercession driven by love and justice. Thus, the story of Sodom, intertwined with Abraham's faith, invites us to reflect on our own lives, on the choices we make, and on the transformative power of compassion and justice. It teaches us about the importance of standing with humility and courage for what is right, even when facing the harshest truths. Lot's saga, marked by hesitation and moral dilemmas, reaches its climax in a scene charged with tension and emotion. At the decisive moment, when imminent destruction threatens to consume not only the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, but also those who inhabit them, the angels intervene directly in the lives of Lot and his family. This divine intervention, driven by the mercy granted due to Abraham's intercession, reveals the complexity of the relationships between the human and the divine, between justice and compassion. Lot's hesitation in the face of impending danger reflects a deep human ambivalence in the face of life or death choices. The mercy shown by the angels, taking Lot and his family by the hands and pulling them out of danger, is an act of salvation that transcends mere physical survival. It is a gesture that reaffirms the value of human life and the possibility of redemption even in the darkest moments. Lot's negotiation for the city of Zoar, a plea to save himself in a place he deems reachable and safe, is a manifestation of his vulnerability and his desire to find refuge amidst chaos. The angels' consent to this request not only saves Lot and his family, but also establishes Zoar as a symbol of mercy and hope, a reminder that even in the smallest cities and the smallest decisions, acts of kindness and possibilities for a new beginning can be found. The tragedy of Lot's wife, turned into a pillar of salt for looking back, stands as one of the most emblematic moments of this narrative. This act of disobedience, more than a mere physical gesture, reflects the challenge of detaching from the past and the choices that have defined our lives. The transformation of Lot's wife into a pillar of salt serves as a powerful symbol of resistance to change and the consequences of clinging to a life doomed to destruction. The narrative of Lot, Zoar, and the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah offers profound reflection on human nature, the choices we make, and the consequences those choices bring. It teaches us about the importance of obedience, faith, and the ability to move forward, leaving behind what cannot be saved. It reminds us that even in the moments of greatest despair, there is a possibility for mercy and a new beginning, provided we are willing to accept the help offered to us and make choices that lead us to salvation. This final episode in Lot's saga reveals the depths of human desolation and despair, weaving a tale of survival that challenges the boundaries of morality and ethics. The decision of Lot's daughters to preserve their family lineage through acts of incest, though shocking, reflects extreme isolation and a perception of an uncertain future. This narrative, set in the shadows of a cave in the mountains, away from society and its norms, unfolds as a testament to the complexity of human choices in extreme circumstances. The irony of Lot's situation is palpable. He, who once chose Sodom for its fertility and prosperity, now finds himself relegated to a marginalized existence in a cave, far from the smoldering ruins of the cities he chose as home. This irony is heightened by the transformation of Zoar from a refuge to a source of fear, forcing Lot to seek safety in the mountains, a place he initially feared would cost him his life. The contrast between the destruction of Sodom and the survival of Lot and his daughters evokes reflections on the indirect consequences of choices made and how legacies are preserved. The pregnancy of Lot's daughters, resulting from a plan born of desperation, sows the roots of future conflicts and rivalries between nations, underscoring the complex web of cause and effect that stretches across generations. This story, imbued with themes of loss, survival, and the quest for continuity in the face of annihilation, resonates with the persistence of life and cultural identity, even under the most adverse circumstances. Lot's trajectory from Sodom to the mountains, and the subsequent births of Moab and Ben-Ami serve as reminders of human life's tenacity and the capacity for adaptation and survival in the face of devastation. The narrative of Lot and his daughters acts as a mirror to the complexities of the human condition, challenging us to reflect on the nuances of justice, morality, and resilience. It invites us to consider the shadows that accompany choices made in darkness, and how, even in moments of greatest despair, the desire to preserve life and lineage can lead to acts that defy social and ethical conventions. Lot's saga, intertwined with the fates of Sodom and Gomorrah, unfolds as a rich tapestry of moral and spiritual lessons, providing a mirror to the human condition that transcends the contours of its historical narrative. The choice of names for his children, Moab and Ben-Ami, reflects not only the controversial origin of these peoples, but also serves as a perpetual reminder to Israel of the lasting consequences of choices made in moments of despair and isolation. This account illuminates the complex relationship between divine justice and mercy, between moral integrity and the temptations of materialism and comfort. Lot, though described in the scriptures as righteous, struggles to disentangle not only from the physical entrapments of Sodom, but also from the distorted values the city represented. His journey, marked by contradictions and moral dilemmas, underscores the difficulty of maintaining spiritual purity in a corrupted environment. Lot's willingness to sacrifice his own daughters in the name of hospitality while seeking to protect his divine guests reveals the complexity of moral and ethical standards within Sodom, and by extension, Lot's internal struggle between devotion and hypocrisy. This tension is magnified by his wife's hesitation and his daughter's desperate plan, reflecting the long shadow that Sodom cast over his family. The destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, along with the preservation of Lot, illustrates the precision of divine judgment, capable of discerning the righteous from the unrighteous, and the mercy that extends even in the darkest circumstances. However, Lot's subsequent life in the mountains, his daughter's tragic decision, and the births of Moab and Ben-Ami reveal the unforeseen and often tragic consequences of human choices. This narrative serves not only as a warning against the seduction of corruption and materialism, but also as a call to reflection on the values that guide our lives. The memory of Lot's wife, turned into a pillar of salt for looking back, echoes through time as a powerful symbol of the danger of clinging too closely to the pleasures and comforts of this world at the expense of eternal values. Thus, Lot's legacy offers a profound study on human nature, divine judgment and mercy, and the challenges of living a life of faith in a world often hostile to spiritual principles. It is an invitation to introspection and the conscious choice of a path that, although often difficult, leads to the preservation of the moral and spiritual values that sustain life and community.